Hi, I'm John Brand, and this is A Moth. The film tells a story based on real events experienced by a former prisoner nicknamed the Moth. The film begins with the message that the plot is based on real events. Then a window opens in the iron prison door, from which the main character looks out. Prisoner Henri Charrier, nicknamed the Moth. The events are transferred to Paris in 1931. A moth in an expensive suit opens a safe in someone's apartment, then goes down the drain and goes to a cabaret. He has a meeting with the owner of the establishment, who can't wait to show how thugs beat up some poor guy. According to the leader, he reported him to the police. Having taken the loot in the form of diamonds from the bear hunter, the leader, he hints vaguely that Henry will suffer a worse fate if he tries to withhold more than his share of the proceeds. Later, the Moth is waiting in the alley when his girlfriend's work shift is over, a girl with very dexterous hands for honest work. He gives her a necklace, but the unaccounted-for jewelry catches the eye of one of the henchmen of the leader. After a wild night out, which includes drinking alcohol right on the street in front of performing artists, in an apartment naked, Arnie and his girlfriend are being knocked on by the landlord, a thief who doesn't suspect anything bad about himself. He opens the door and the gendarmes rush in, accusing him in the murder of a local pimp, the same informer beaten up the day before. Saying goodbye to his beloved girl, the Moth promises to escape and return to her. In the cell, the robber Julot unilaterally gets acquainted with the burglar. A new friend recommends getting money, otherwise there is no way to escape. During a group physical, Julot shows him Louis Degas, the counterfeiter, who probably has money. After being examined, the prisoners are informed that they will be deported to French Guiana, a colony in South America, where they will serve their time for the rest of their lives, along the way, having fun with hard labor at home. On the ship, Henry suggests Louis is protected in exchange for some of the money needed to arrange an escape. Otherwise, the proletariat, wishing to expropriate the loot, will ensure that the fraudster does not have time to spend the money before his premature death. Louis refuses, but that night he witnesses a huge fat man gutting his neighbor for a stash. Realizing that he will be the next counterfeiter, he accepts Moth's offer. The next night, a fat man with a knife tries to kill Louis, but his new friend protects him. A fight ensues, which the guards stop by letting hot steam into the hold. Henry's bloody hands testify to his participation in the fight, after which he is punished by shackling. During disembarkation, Julot falls down the stairs, having previously injured his leg, which is stuck behind the point. He is assigned to a medical unit. The rest are taken to get acquainted with a lifelong boarding school. The battered commandant honestly admits that he does not mind the prisoners' attempts to escape. Those who are not shot immediately will be put in solitary confinement for 2 years, and in case of a relapse, for 5 years. If they manage to get away, the sea around them is teeming with hungry sharks. But if someone accidentally kills someone, then the glorious French invention of the guillotine in the first half of the 20th century was still actively used in civilized countries in just such cases. But Henry's hot guy is a real rebel, right? Still the diligent son of anarchy mom. Warnings have no effect on it. He is already making an audacious plan for early release. First, you need to get to the infirmary to the busy Julot. To arrange the distribution, he negotiates with a local decision-maker, but he needs money. Louis has to take out a capsule with a stash from the anus, along with dirtying the banknotes with a known substance. But money doesn't smell. After a voluntary contribution to the fund, Louis and Henry are assigned to the infirmary with orderlies. It would seem that the plan worked, but the deputy commandant recognizes the counterfeiter. He has personal scores to settle, so the creative duo is sent to hard labor, to carry heavy loads. Here they get to know Sully, and at the same time almost lose their battered stash when Louis strained too much, pushing a cart with stones. Henri finds the capsule and returns it to him, not so much out of friendship, as much as out of unwillingness to keep finances in the oven. At the camp, Henry and Sully discuss the possibility of escape. The watchman has some plans, but he needs money for a boat. The conversation is interrupted by a quarrel between a bully and Louis. The stranger wants to take away his money. The Moth intervenes, but the convoy stops the outrage with a warning shot in the air. On the way back, the guards pick up a local ferryman with a batch of fresh courtesans. Moth tries to negotiate with him on the subject of dumping, but he almost turns him in, negotiating a high price. In the end, he agrees to help, but for all 3 days, after which the boat will sail from the island. Later, during a shower, a group of comrades tries to redistribute material goods, but brute physical strength, luck, and an educational bruising allow Henry to maintain the status quo. However, the incident leads Louis to believe that he will not last long here and asks him to take him with him to freedom. The next day, The prisoners are gathered in the square for execution. Some tried to escape by stabbing a couple of guards, one to the death. The condemned man was Julot. Henri gets up from her seat, recognizing him. After the beheading, the commandant tells the Moth and another prisoner of his choice to remove the body. Henri chooses Louis, who doesn't like carrying a corpse at all. When they carry the body to the boat, the fraudster becomes bad. He collapses. The guard beats him with a whip, which angers the Moth. The intruder hits the twirler on the head with a stone and prepares to escape. Exhausted Louis, who has lost his glasses and is unable to even stand, has to be left. Henri jumps into the river to the whistle of bullets fired by the guards. By nightfall, the Moth reaches the ferryman's boat. He doesn't have any money with him, but he promises to pay later. In response, he laughs, and his friends come out of the darkness with guns. He and the commandant have a contract to catch fugitives, better paid than the convicts can offer. Henri is locked in solitary confinement for 2 years, where silence cannot be disturbed. There, he is periodically beaten and fed only so that he does not stretch his legs. However, one day he finds half a coconut in a bucket of water and a note saying that from now on, he will be fed better. The reinforced ration allows the Moth to perk up. He starts doing physical exercises to keep fit. There's plenty of protein now, just like in the vaunted American prison. It is impossible to avoid a terrible fate. A lucky chance helps him swing in prison. The guards, who suspected something was wrong, checked the bucket one day and found a smuggled coconut. After that, the commandant himself came to ask who was feeding him so carefully. The Moth diligently remains silent, even when his already meager ration is cut in half. Then they close the roof over their heads, plunging them into complete darkness. Even when a hungry and emaciated prisoner is tempted by fresh soup, he does not betray the benefactor. From darkness, silence, loneliness, and hunger, the Moth is tormented by hallucinations and visions of the past. But he doesn't give up, and after the prescribed 2 years, he is transferred from the punishment cell to the infirmary, where he successfully pretends to be crazy. During this time, Louis managed to become a clerk and gain some freedom among the prisoners. He visits a friend in the hospital, and he informs him that he has not given up the idea of escaping. But now the plan has already been developed by the fraudster himself. In a few days, there will be a movie screening for the local bigwigs. The commandant will increase security, but it will be mostly near the guests, not around the perimeter. In addition, the noise from the cinema will hide footsteps and other activity. Henri plans the details. He fakes bouts of violence so that the doctor gives him a sedative, which is successfully postponed. Then he talks to a cute guy who has his eye on a bully orderly who longs for female affection. He would have to be distracted at the right hour. The final touch is a meeting with Célie. He cut his hand to get to the hospital, but he can still get a boat if he has the money. Louis has to give him almost everything that's left. On the appointed day, Louis, acting as a waiter, pours soothing vodka, which he passes to the guards, allegedly a gift from the commandant. At this time, Maturette distracts a lustful burly guard. Henri and Célie unscrew the legs from the beds, then follow into the shower room, where they stun the guard. With his keys, they go down to the first floor, where the security guards are already fainting from a vodka-soothing cocktail. The fugitives are waiting for Louis, but he is detained by the commandant. It suddenly starts to rain, the open-air movie is interrupted, and the guests are escorted under the roof. But because of the short circuit, the light turns off. To the sound of an automatic siren, Louis unlocks the door to his comrades, and together they go out onto the prison wall. When they jump down from it, the electricity turns on. Louis suddenly falls and breaks his leg. He is dragged through the rain to the riverbank, where the vendors should be waiting. They are met by armed men. Louis has to give the last of the money so that they can take them to the hidden boat. But the plan succeeds, and at dawn, the fugitives reach the river by boat to the outlet to the ocean. However, the small craft soon fills excessively with water. Would-be navigators do not have time to bail out. Célie suggests that the motel get rid of excess ballast, which means one of the minor fellow travelers. The noble burglar, of course, refuses. That's not why they're together from the first kilometer. The situation gets worse when a storm appears on the horizon. Célie, having incited Maturette against Louis, pulls out a knife. However, the cute one also pleased the guard for a reason. In order to kill his accomplices now, he rushes at the big man, but flies overboard. A fight ensues between Célia and the rear, in which the first almost drowned the second. Louis, who had been sitting on the sidelines, realizing that such an outcome would not be good for him, picks up the dropped wingboot. He begins to sharpen it and systematically pokes it into Célia's back. After dumping the corpse overboard and picking up the cute one, they fall into a storm. In the next scene, Henri wakes up somewhere in a hut on some island. It is unclear how they got to land, but the local Aborigines, under the guidance of Christian missionaries, sheltered them. Moth finds Louis with a splint on his broken leg and tells him to leave, but he refuses. When he warned Henry that Sele could not be trusted, he did not listen to him. Machuret doesn't want to leave either. He's finally popular not only with fat jailers, but the charming natives. Modal leaves the coastal camp alone, but after climbing the mountain, he sees the car of the jailers, warned by a nun. He hurries to take a short way back to warn his accomplices, but does not have time. The handsome man was shot in front of his eyes, and they were tied up together with Louis, who is deeply touched that Henry came back for him, risking himself. In the next scene, a thinned and graying Moth is released from solitary confinement after 5 years. The commandant directs him to the island. The Devil is a terrible prison on a lonely rock in the middle of the ocean, from which it is impossible to escape because there is nowhere to go. There, in the old fortress, the dregs of prison society are living out their last days, who are presented to themselves. Henry meets an aged Louis. The commandant did not torment him in solitary for 2 years for his first escape and immediately sent him into eternal exile on the island. The fraudster, who has preserved the remnants of his mind in this way, paints pictures on the walls and generally lives quite well compared to the rest of the contingent. But even after all these years, Henry is not satisfied with this. He is still planning an escape. To do this, he needs access to the ocean. Louis leads him to a cliff, which is purely theoretical. You can jump into the water and survive, but where can you go without a boat? Watching the waves and tides, the Moth notices a pattern and makes a plan to make a fruit from improvised materials, which the current will carry to the mainland. She and Louis make it out of sacks, coconuts, and scrap materials. However, on the day of the escape, the fraudster refuses. Unlike Henry, he has nowhere to return to, and here he has already settled in well. And you need to survive a cliff jump. The friends say goodbye, after which the Moth throws the fruit into the water and jumps after it. Louis looks at the ripples on the water, but does not see his friend. He is already losing hope, takes off his glasses and wipes away his tears. When a jubilant cry is heard from below, Henry swam out and clung to a homemade fruit. They say goodbye to each other once more, after which the Moth swings on the endless ocean waves. A jet passenger liner suddenly sails through the sky. The case is transferred to 1969, aged but survived. Henry flies to Paris, where he is still a criminal. He brings his memoirs to the publisher, memoirs about the hard life in a colonial settlement, which he wrote down while he still remembers something. These notes should be published precisely during France, the country that wrongly sentenced him to such a life. The movie ends with archive footage and credits stating that during Motel's lifetime, that prison was closed forever. Yes, the book became a bestseller, and he was granted a pardon by the ministers of justice. That's all. Share your impressions in the comments and subscribe to the channel. Good luck.